I never planned to fall for a monster, especially one with fire in his eyes and royalty in his veins. But the night he slid money across the table to end the child he put inside me, I realized love could terrify even a king. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now, let us begin. The night he walked into my life, the sky over Silver Creek glowed like molten copper. Smoke from the distant wildfires hung low, curling around the old pine trees and drifting through the quiet streets like a warning. The town had always been small, sleepy, predictable, just the kind of place where dreams came to die. But that night, something shifted. I worked the late shift at Silver Creek Diner, the smell of frying bacon and fresh coffee mingling with the damp chill of the air. My hair, long, blonde, and wavy, brushed my shoulders as I tied my apron tighter around my waist. It always seemed too thick for a diner job, too soft, too bright, but I didn't care. One day, I would leave this place behind. One day, I would escape. The bell over the door jingled, and I didn't even glance up at first. Probably a trucker or a lost tourist seeking warmth and caffeine. But the moment I finally looked, everything stilled. He was there, tall, pale, unbelievably beautiful. His hair fell in moonlit waves around his shoulders, almost glowing under the neon light. And his eyes, oh God, his eyes, burned like liquid gold, bright and wild, alive in a way no human eyes ever could be. He wasn't just handsome. He was something else, something unreal. I froze behind the counter, hands clutching a coffee pot I barely noticed anymore. My heart raced, my breath caught, and every instinct screamed at me to look away. Instead, I walked toward him. "Coffee?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to act normal. "Yes," he said, voice low, smooth, and unsettlingly calm. "Black." I poured it carefully, my fingers brushing the handle of the mug like it was a lifeline. When I handed it to him, he looked at me. Not like a customer, but like he was dissecting me, memorizing every detail of my face, my stance, my soul. "What's your name?" he asked. "Aubrey Lane," I said, my voice a little shaky. He repeated it, slow and deliberate. "Aubrey Lane." It rolled off his tongue like a secret he was keeping just for himself. "And you are?" I asked, though I already felt the answer in my bones. "Lucian," he said. "Just Lucian. Nothing else." The name felt ancient, heavy with power. From that moment, he became a shadow in my life. He returned night after night, always when the world slept, always in the corners where nobody else dared to go. He never ate, never drank, never spoke more than necessary, but he watched, always watched. 2 months passed like that. 2 months of stolen nights and whispered conversations in the dark. 2 months of forbidden kisses in the forest behind the diner, where the pines loomed like silent sentinels. I should have run. Every warning bell in my head screamed that he was dangerous, that he was a monster. But the pull between us was impossible to resist. I felt alive in his presence in a way I'd never known. And then, the morning I realized I was pregnant, everything changed. It started with a missed period, but I brushed it off. Then a second test, then a third. Each time, my heart sank a little further. I was carrying Lucian's child. His child, the son or daughter of a vampire prince. Something that shouldn't exist in the human world. Something that could destroy everything if it got out. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think straight. Finally, I confronted him. We met in the shadowed alley behind the diner, the place where he first kissed me. Rain drizzled softly, wetting my hair, curling around the waves in soft golden strands. I tried to steady my voice. "Lucian, I'm pregnant." He froze. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't speak at all. Then his golden eyes darkened, dimming like dying embers. "No," he whispered. "Aubrey, no." "What do you mean, no?" I demanded, stepping closer. "It's our child." He shook his head slowly, as if the concept was too heavy to bear. Then, from the inside of his coat, he pulled out a thick envelope and set it on the wet pavement. It slid toward me, slick from the rain. My eyes fell on the contents, $50,000 in cash. Get rid of it, he said. His voice was calm, but the edges were sharp, unyielding. Before my father finds out. I blinked. My throat went dry. You want me to kill our child? It is not a child, he said, his voice rising slightly, the faintest crack of something older, colder, behind the words. It is a threat. It cannot exist. Tears stung my eyes. Lucian, I loved you. His golden gaze softened for the briefest second, just enough to make me hope, before it hardened again, unyielding as ice. Then do what I am asking. I shook my head, feeling my chest tighten. I turned and ran. Rain plastered my hair to my face, my shoes slipping on the wet pavement, my lungs burning. I ran until my legs gave out, until my mind couldn't think straight anymore. I slammed the door of my small apartment behind me and sank to the floor, heart pounding, tears dripping down my cheeks, the envelope still heavy in my memory. But I wasn't safe. 2 days later, the vampire world found me anyway. And when the king himself appeared, tall, terrifying, impossibly elegant, I realized that my unborn child was far more than a threat. My baby might be the key to secrets even Lucian had never dared to reveal. Everything I thought I knew was about to shatter. The knock on my apartment door was soft, deliberate, but it made my chest seize like someone had gripped it in their hand. I had barely slept since the alley encounter, my mind replaying Lucian's golden eyes, the coldness in his tone, and the weight of that envelope. $50,000. $50,000 for something I would never erase. Who is it? I whispered to the empty room, clutching the small wooden chair for support. My hair was tangled, damp from the rain that had soaked me hours before. I hadn't even bothered to change out of my work clothes. The diner apron still clung to my frame. No answer. I took a hesitant step forward and peeked through the peephole. My heart skipped. 2 shapes stood in the hallway. One tall, impossibly thin, dressed in black, face obscured by a hood. The other, smaller, more human, but something about their posture screamed alertness, danger, tension. Before I could react, the door rattled. Aubrey Lane. The voice was calm, but commanding, leaving no room for argument. I froze. My lips parted, no words coming out. The taller figure pushed the door open. Pale hands, long fingers, black nails. A presence that seemed to absorb the dim light in the hallway. My breath hitched. I'd only ever read about this in books. About beings older than humanity itself, older than history, living shadows that could crush you with a glance. The tall figure removed the hood, revealing a face that was both terrifying and mesmerizing. Skin pale as marble, hair white as frost, eyes a bright, almost cruel, crimson. My knees weakened. I am King Valerius Hale, he said, his voice smooth, deep, resonating like the echo in a cathedral. And you are carrying what I have long feared and long desired. I backed against the wall, my hands clenching the doorframe. You're Lucian's father? I asked, barely able to whisper the words. Yes, he said, stepping forward, moving with the grace of a predator. And yet, you are human, fragile, mortal. And yet, inside you, you carry my bloodline. A threat, yes, but also a potential salvation. My mind spun. Salvation? Threat? What did he mean? You want to kill me, I said, voice trembling. Or the baby. My throat closed up, tears threatening to spill. Lucian. He wants me to... I couldn't even say the word aloud. King Valerius's eyes narrowed. Your son, or daughter, has power you cannot begin to comprehend, and your little human heart cannot withstand the consequences. That is why I am here. I shook my head, unable to form a response. Part of me screamed to run, but another foolish part, something in my chest, drew me to listen. Why me? I asked, voice shaking. Why choose me? I'm human. I'm nothing. Exactly, he said, stepping closer, cold air following him like a storm. You are nothing in this world. And yet, in the next, you could be everything. The child you carry could change the very course of our existence. I wanted to scream, to run, to tell him I didn't want anything to do with him, or Lucian, or this dark, tangled legacy. But I was too afraid, and I was too curious. Suddenly, a movement behind him caught my eye. The smaller figure stepped forward. Younger, human-looking, but with a confidence I couldn't place. Her eyes were sharp, piercing, almost predatory, but she smiled faintly at me. "You'll need help," she said softly, "whether you want it or not." I glanced between them. "Help," I whispered. From you." "Yes," she said, stepping closer. "I know what it's like to survive, to hide. And you will need allies if you're to keep this child safe. Not everyone will be so reasonable." My mind reeled. Allies? Vampires? Survival? Safe? I didn't even know how I could survive in this world, let alone raise a child, a half-vampire child, in the shadows of kings and monsters. Valerius tilted his head, crimson eyes blazing. "Lucian may have offered you money to end what you carry. He is weak. He fears his father's wrath, his responsibilities, his legacy. But I see potential. You are the one chance to protect what should never have been, and perhaps, one day, to wield it." I wanted to vomit. The room spun. My child, my baby, was a weapon? A key? Something that could tip the scales of a war I didn't even know existed? "I don't even know if I want this," I whispered, clutching my stomach. "I barely know how to survive it. And I barely know Lucian." "You do know him," Valerius interrupted sharply. "And yet, you cannot understand the depths of his weakness. You must become stronger than you ever thought possible." The small figure stepped forward again. "I can teach you," she said, "if you trust me." I hesitated. My instinct screamed at me to run. But deep down, a seed of determination grew. I couldn't kill my child. And if vampires were already circling my life like predators, I had no choice but to fight. What do I have to do?" I asked, finally finding my voice. "First," the young woman said, "you disappear. Completely. You go off the map. They cannot find you. Not Lucian. Not the others. And you will need protection." I swallowed hard, nodding. My mind raced. Disappear? How could I disappear in Silver Creek, in a world I knew, without anyone noticing? Valerius spoke again, his voice smoother, colder than ice. "I will provide resources. Safe houses. Guardians. You must understand, human, this is no longer a matter of choice. The world is watching. The balance is delicate. And your child carries a destiny older than humanity itself." I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand answers I would never get. But most of all, I wanted my life back. And somehow, I knew I could never have it. As I left my apartment that night, escorted by the small, shadowy woman, my unexpected ally, I glanced back at the envelope Lucian had left behind. I thought of him, his golden eyes, his fiery presence, the coldness that had shocked me to the core. And despite everything, a part of me still ached for him. Aching was dangerous. In this world, emotions could kill. Or worse. The small woman noticed my glance. "Do not look back," she said. "Not yet. Not until you are ready. Until you can face what is coming and survive it." We moved through the streets like ghosts, silent and unseen, slipping past the shadows of Silver Creek. Somewhere behind us, I knew the vampire world stirred. Waiting, watching, hungry. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My thoughts swirled like storm clouds. Lucian, the king, the child, the danger, the impossible choices. But amidst the fear, a single, stubborn flame of determination grew. I would survive. I would protect my child. And somehow, I would find a way to face Lucian again. Because one thing was clear, I wasn't just running from vampires. I was running towards something. Something I couldn't yet name. Something that could change everything. And I had no idea how far I would have to go before I could uncover it. The night air was thick and cold, carrying the sharp scent of pine and distant rain. I ran along the empty dirt road, the small, shadowy woman guiding me like a phantom through the wilderness. Every crunch of gravel underfoot, every snap of a twig made my heart leap into my throat. I was exhausted, terrified, and yet strangely exhilarated. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just a human pawn anymore. I was something bigger, something dangerous, something that could fight back. "My name is Celine," the woman said quietly as we moved, her boots silent on the wet earth. "I'll be your guide, your teacher, and, if necessary, your shield." I glanced at her, trying to gauge her age. She looked young, maybe a little older than me, but there was something in her posture, the way she moved, that screamed experience. Decades of experience, maybe centuries. My instincts told me she wasn't entirely human either, but I didn't dare ask. I don't even know where I'm going, I whispered. Or if I can survive. You'll survive, Celine said firmly. But only if you let go of the world you thought you knew. Your apartment, your diner, your ordinary life. That life is gone, Aubrey Lane, and you cannot go back. The words stung, but she was right. I couldn't go back. Not after Lucian. Not after the envelope. Not after King Valerius. Not after knowing the truth about what my child represented. We reached a clearing in the forest, moonlight filtering through the tall pines. Celine led me to a small cabin, almost hidden beneath the trees. It was crude but clean. Inside, there were blankets, food, and weapons. Swords, knives, and stakes lined one wall. My stomach churned. Weapons? I asked, disbelief in my voice. What am I supposed to do with these? Learn to defend yourself, Celine said. You're carrying a child the vampire world will try to destroy. And soon, Lucian himself will come for you. Weakness is death. The name Lucian burned in my chest. I had thought I'd run far enough, hidden far enough, but Celine's words reminded me. There was no hiding from him, or for what he represented. Over the next few days, or maybe weeks, I lost track of time. Celine trained me. She taught me how to move silently, how to sense danger, and how to fight using not only strength but wit. Every exercise left me sore, trembling, but also more alive than I had ever felt. But it wasn't just physical. Celine also trained my mind. She taught me to anticipate vampire tactics, read movements, detect lies, and predict threats. I realized that surviving in this world required more than courage. It required cunning. One evening, after a long day of running drills in the rain, I collapsed against a tree. My body was bruised, my arms trembling from the exercises, and my stomach ached from hunger. Celine knelt beside me. You're stronger than you think, she said softly. But strength without strategy is useless. And right now, strategy is everything. I shivered, hugging my knees. I'm just scared. You should be, Celine said. Fear is your ally. It keeps you alive, but you must never let it control you. Remember, Aubrey, your child's life depends on yours. And if you falter, they will take it. Lucian, Valerius, even those you trust may betray you. Her words were harsh, but necessary. And for the first time, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about survival. It was about power. My child carried power, and everyone in this dark world wanted a piece of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on the floor, listening to the wind through the trees, replaying Lucian's golden eyes over and over. My emotions were a storm. Fear, longing, anger, and a strange, aching hope that somewhere, somehow, he might fight for me instead of against me. But I knew better. Lucian was already conflicted. I could feel in the way he had looked at me in the alley, the way his anger had masked something deeper, something almost tender. And then, as if my thoughts had summoned him, I heard the faintest whisper in the darkness. Aubrey. My heart stopped. I froze, straining to hear. The voice was unmistakable. Golden. Dangerous. Lucian. Stay back. I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. He stepped into the moonlight, tall and pale, his white hair gleaming like frost. His eyes glowed softly, less threatening than before, but no less intense. I didn't mean to frighten you, he said quietly. I only needed to see you, to know you were safe. I tightened my fists. Safe? From you. His jaw tightened. From everyone. From me. From what this world has become. We stood in silence, rain dripping from the trees around us. The wind stirred, carrying with it the faintest scent of danger. Celine had taught me to recognize it. You shouldn't have come, I said finally. You wanted me to do what? My voice shook. You wanted me to get rid of our child. Lucian's face contorted, a mixture of guilt and frustration. I thought it was the only way to protect you and the child. My father, he would have destroyed everything if he found out. I snapped, my voice echoing through the clearing. You don't get to decide who lives or dies. You, you left me with nothing but fear. He stepped closer, but I didn't move. Not yet. I couldn't. And yet, part of me ached to reach for him, to trust him, to forgive him. You have no idea what it is like to watch the people you love suffer, he said quietly. To be powerless to stop it. I wanted to save you in the only way I knew, and I failed. I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to curse him. And yet, the ache in my heart refused to disappear. Before I could respond, movement in the trees caught my attention. Shadows shifting too fast, too deliberate. My heart raced. Vampires, Celine hissed from the darkness, her presence appearing like a phantom behind me. They've tracked you. Lucian's eyes flared gold. His lips twisted into a snarl of fury. Stay behind me, he said, moving instinctively, his stance defensive, protective. From the shadows, figures emerged. Sleek, pale, with glowing eyes and predatory smiles. They were younger than the king, but no less deadly. A dozen of them, watching, waiting, hunger in their gaze. I realized then what Celine had meant. My child and I were being hunted, and Lucian, despite everything, despite the coldness, despite the envelope, he was here to protect me. For the first time, I understood the stakes. This was no longer about survival. This was war, and I was at the center. Lucian's voice cut through the tension. You will not touch her, he said, tone low, commanding, absolute, or you will face me. The lead vampire stepped forward, smirk curling at the edge of her pale lips. She is weak, she said, and the child, priceless. You cannot protect both. Lucian's hands moved like lightning, striking with strength and precision that defied human ability. The vampires scattered, retreating, hissing, unwilling to press the fight. I stood frozen, breathless, watching him. Not just the man who had left me with an impossible choice, but the vampire who had chosen to fight, to protect. The small cabin behind the clearing suddenly seemed safer. A temporary haven, yes, but this night had proven one truth I could no longer ignore. I could not rely on anyone, not even Lucian. Survival, training, cunning, and trust in Celine. These would be my weapons. The forest around the palace was silent, almost unnaturally so. The mist that curled around the trees seemed alive, moving in deliberate patterns as though it were guarding the path. Celine led me through the undergrowth, her movements fluid and untraceable, while I stumbled along behind, my blonde hair plastered to my face from the rain that had soaked us earlier. I tried to steady my breathing. Each step closer to the palace felt like walking toward a trap I couldn't see. The stories Celine had told me about vampire politics, about the cruelty and power of the royal bloodline, had terrified me at first, but now, I felt the weight of destiny pressing down on my shoulders. My child's life depended on every careful choice I made, and even Celine, with all her centuries of experience, could not guarantee my survival. Ahead, the black spires of the palace rose into the night sky. Red light seeped from the cracks in the walls, glowing like molten fire, illuminating the dense mist. It was impossible to imagine a human, or even a vampire, entering those gates and leaving unscathed. I swallowed hard and forced myself to keep moving. Lucian appeared from the shadows, his white hair glinting in the faint moonlight. His golden eyes, which had haunted my dreams for weeks, fixed on me. You shouldn't be here, he said softly, his voice a mixture of warning and longing. The palace is not a place for you. Not yet. I have to know, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my chest. I need answers, Lucian. About the palace, about your father, about the child. I need to know what I'm carrying. He closed his eyes briefly, as if in pain. You don't understand, he murmured. Nothing here is safe. You could die before even stepping through the gates. I'd rather die knowing the truth than live in fear, I said firmly, and something in his gaze flickered. Fear, perhaps, or admiration, or maybe both. Celine whispered, the gates are near. Stay close and do exactly as I say. One wrong step, she didn't finish the sentence. We both knew what would happen. The massive gates loomed before us, impossibly tall, forged from blackened steel, etched with runes that pulsed faintly with red light. Celine murmured an incantation, and the gates parted silently, revealing a courtyard filled with statues of creatures that seemed half human, half beast. Their eyes glowed faintly as if they were watching us, judging our every movement. Inside, the palace was a labyrinth of shadows and red light. Marble floors reflected the flickering torches along the walls. Tapestries depicted wars between humans and vampires, victories and betrayals, alliances forged in blood. The air was thick, heavy, and alive. Every breath felt charged with centuries of power, with secrets that had been buried for lifetimes. "Welcome," a voice said from above, smooth and commanding. The throne room doors opened, revealing King Valerius Hale. His presence filled the space before him, radiating authority, menace, and power so intense it made my knees buckle. His crimson eyes scanned me as though I were both prey and curiosity. "You are Aubrey Lane," he said, his voice echoing through the hall like thunder. "And you carry what could decide the fate of my lineage." I swallowed hard. I don't understand. Why me? Why my child? "Because," he said, stepping down from the dais, "you are fragile, human, and yet within you lies the only chance for our survival. The child you carry will either preserve our bloodline or destroy it." I glanced at Lucian, who stood behind me, golden eyes darkening. "You knew?" I whispered. "I did." He admitted, his jaw tight. "And I try to protect you in the only way I knew, by leaving you with nothing." I failed." Valerius raised a hand, cutting off any further argument. "Enough. Words are meaningless. This is a test, a trial, one that will determine your worth, your child's worth, and the future of this bloodline." Before I could comprehend, the shadows around us shifted. Figures emerged, vampires of all ages, some youthful, others ancient, all with eyes glowing red, faces sharp and cruel. They circled us like predators, their hunger for power palpable. Celine stepped forward, her presence a shield. "Aubrey, remember what I taught you. Use your mind, your instincts. Survival is not enough. You must dominate." The vampires attacked with blinding speed. Lucian moved like liquid fire, striking with precision, but even he couldn't stop all of them. I ducked, rolled, swung, and struck as Celine guided me, teaching me to fight using fear and cunning rather than brute strength. Hours, or was it days, passed in a blur of movement and adrenaline. Every time I thought we had survived, another wave emerged from the shadows, testing my resolve, my skill, my ability to think under pressure. I felt every cut, every bruise, every exhaustion pang in my body, but a strange strength grew inside me. I was no longer just a frightened human. I was a force to be reckoned with. Then came the first betrayal. A vampire I thought was allied with us, a young male named Kieran, lunged at Lucian with a blade forged from black steel. I screamed, but before I could react, Celine intercepted him. Blood sprayed across the marble floor, and Kieran vanished into the shadows. My stomach twisted. The palace was crawling with enemies, and trust was a currency I could not afford. Valerius's voice boomed, cutting through the chaos. "You're being tested not just for strength, but for judgment. Who will betray you? Who will fight for you? And who will fall?" Lucian's face was etched with pain and anger. "Aubrey, stay close. Do not let them separate us." I nodded, clutching my stomach, feeling the child move, a tiny, imperceptible reminder that I could not fail. Not now, not ever. As the night deepened, I was pulled into a chamber lined with mirrors. Reflections of me, of Lucian, of Celine, and dozens of others flickered endlessly, distorted and twisted. "This is your final trial," Valerius said from the shadows. "Here, you confront your fears. Here, you confront yourself." The mirrors shimmered, and suddenly I was no longer in the room. I was in the diner, standing behind the counter. Lucian stood across from me, golden eyes burning. "Do it," he whispered. "Make the choice." I realized in horror that the mirrors showed not just illusions. They were testing my will, my ability to protect my child against every possible fear, doubt, and threat. One wrong choice, one hesitation, and the illusions could become reality. I steadied my breathing. I focused. I imagined holding my child in my arms, safe. I imagined surviving, fighting, winning. The illusions shifted and recoiled under the strength of my resolve. Valerius stepped forward, applauding softly. Impressive. But remember, this is only the beginning. The palace, the factions, the threats, they are far from over. You must learn, grow, and endure. And the moment you falter, everything you love will be at risk. I fell to my knees, exhausted, every muscle screaming in pain. Lucian knelt beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You are stronger than you realize," he murmured. "And soon you will understand just how powerful you are. And so will they." I realized then, amidst the sweat, blood, and shadows, that survival was no longer enough. I had to become something more. A mother, a warrior, a force the vampire world could not ignore. And perhaps, in time, I could even make Lucian see that love was not weakness. The palace was a cage, but it was also a forge. And I was being forged into something unbreakable. The first rays of dawn barely pierced the towering spires of the vampire palace. The night had been merciless, a storm of shadows and whispers, and yet I still breathed. I had survived, but not without cost. Bruises marred my arms and legs, my clothing was torn, and my hands still trembled from exhaustion. But deep inside, a fire had been lit, a fire that would not be extinguished. Celine stood beside me, her face calm, almost unreadable. "Today is the day you face your final test," she said softly. Her voice carried weight. Centuries of experience, victories and losses, all distilled into that single statement. Everything you've learned, everything you've survived comes down to this. I swallowed, my fingers tightening around the small pendant I wore. Lucian's gift, the only tangible connection to him I allowed myself. The child moved within me, a small, rhythmic thrum that was both a comfort and a reminder of what was at stake. I would not fail. Not now. Not ever. Lucian appeared silently in the doorway. His white hair fell over his forehead, his golden eyes alight with a mixture of rage, longing, and fear. "Aubrey," he said quietly, "you don't have to do this alone." I shook my head. "I'm not alone," I whispered. "I have you, but I have to face this. For the child. For me." His jaw tightened. "You don't understand. The king has prepared everything. You could die." "I know," I said firmly, "but I've survived worse. And I'm not running anymore." He studied me for a long moment, his gaze softening. "You've changed," he admitted. "You're not the frightened human I left in that alley. You're something extraordinary." Before I could respond, the doors of the grand hall swung open. Figures emerged, vampires of all ages and allegiances, their eyes glowing with hunger, suspicion, and challenge. At the center, King Valerius Hale stood, towering and imposing. "Aubrey Lane," he intoned, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "Today you either claim your child's place in our world or perish." I stepped forward, heart pounding, mind racing. Every lesson Celine had taught me, every ounce of courage I had mustered, every ounce of fear I had transformed into strength, it all came down to this moment. Valerius gestured, and the floor beneath me shifted. I fell, not into darkness, but into a mirrored chamber, reflections stretching infinitely in every direction. The room pulsed with energy, and I realized instantly. This was a trap, a test of not only my strength, but my will, my cunning, and my courage. Lucian's voice echoed from somewhere above. "Aubrey, remember what I told you. You are stronger than you think. Trust yourself. Trust the child." The mirrors shimmered, twisting into images of my worst fears. Shadows of vampires lunged at me, illusions of Celine betraying me, visions of Lucian standing beside Valerius, condemning me to death. My heart raced. Every step, every choice could be my last. I steadied myself, closing my eyes for a fraction of a second, and then opened them with resolve. I am not afraid. I whispered, though my voice trembled. I will survive, and I will protect my child. The shadows attacked, but I moved with precision, striking where I had been taught. I wasn't human anymore. I was something more. My instincts, honed by weeks of training, guided me. The illusions recoiled, then fractured, revealing the true chamber beyond. I emerged into the grand hall once more, breathing hard, sweat mingling with blood. Lucian rushed to my side, concern etched across his golden eyes. "You did it," he said, on his voice. "I did what I had to," I said, voice firm. "But this isn't over. Not until my child is safe." Valerius stepped forward, his crimson eyes blazing. "You have survived the trials, human. You have shown strength, courage, and cunning beyond expectation. But there is one final choice. The factions within my palace are divided. Some demand the child be eliminated. Others wish to see it thrive. You, Aubrey Lane, must decide." I froze. Decide? Decide what? The child was inside me, my flesh and blood, my hope and fear intertwined. I will not let anyone harm my child," I said firmly. "No one. Not you. Not the factions. Not even Lucian if he cannot protect us." Valerius's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "Then you understand what it means to claim power, to command respect, to survive in a world that would devour you. You're no longer merely human. You are a force, and your child will inherit that force." Lucian stepped closer, his golden eyes softening. "You've done this alone," he said, "but you don't have to do it anymore. Let me help you protect what matters most." I looked into his eyes and saw the man I had fallen for, the man who had abandoned me in the alley, the man who had offered money for our child, the man I hated and yet loved with every fiber of my being. I reached out, letting my hand brush his. "I trust you," I whispered. He took my hand, holding it with a tenderness that belied the predator beneath. "And I will not fail again," he vowed. Then the palace trembled. Valerius's crimson eyes flared. "The factions will test your resolve one final time." Shadows surged from the walls, vampires attacking with ferocity unmatched. But this time I did not hesitate. Lucian fought beside me, Celine guiding my movements, and together we were unstoppable. Every strike, every move was calculated. The child within me seemed to pulse with energy, a silent partner in this fight. The vampires faltered under our combined force, until finally, the last attacker fell, bowing before Valerius in surrender. The king studied us, then nodded slowly. "You have proven yourselves. Aubrey Lane, you are not merely a survivor. You are a protector, a mother, and a force this world cannot ignore. Your child will live. And Lucian, you may finally claim your place as both heir and protector, if you choose love over fear." Lucian looked at me, his golden eyes glimmering with unshed tears. "Aubrey, I should have never left you. I should have never let fear rule me. I will never let you or our child be harmed. Not ever." I reached out, pulling him close. "Then we face the future together," I whispered. Valerius watched us, his expression unreadable, then finally spoke. "So be it. The child shall live, and the balance of power shall be maintained. But remember, love is a weakness in our world. Guard it fiercely, or it will destroy you." I nodded, feeling a strange peace settle over me. The palace was still a place of danger and intrigue, but I was no longer afraid. I had faced the darkness, survived it, and emerged stronger. And now, with Lucian by my side, I knew we could face whatever the future held. As the sun broke over the horizon, casting gold and red across the palace walls, I felt the child move within me. A tiny, perfect reminder of everything I had fought for. I smiled, tears slipping down my cheeks. The world had tried to break me, to take everything I loved. But I had survived. I had won. And in the arms of the man I loved, in a palace of shadows and power, I knew one truth. This was only the beginning. Together, we would carve out a new world, for us, for the child, and for a future where love and power could coexist. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly unstoppable. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.